Our scripture today is from John 14. Jesus spoke to his disciples, "Don't let your hearts be troubled. You have faith in God, have faith in me as well. In God's house there are many dwelling places. Otherwise, how could I have told you that I was going to prepare a place for you? I am indeed going to prepare a place for you, and then I will come back to take you with me, that where I am, there you may be as well. You know the way that leads to where I'm going." Thomas replied, "But we don't know where you're going. How can we know the way?" Jesus told him, "I myself am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. No one comes to God but through me. If you really knew me, you would know God also. From this point on, you know God and you have seen God." "Rabbi," Philip said, "show us God, and that will be enough for us." Jesus replied, "Have I been with you all this time, Philip, and still you don't know me? Whoever has seen me has seen God. How can you say, 'Show us God'? Don't you believe that I am in God and God is in me? The words I speak are not spoken of myself. It is God living in me who is accomplishing the works of God. Believe me that I am in God and God is in me, or else believe because of the works I do. The truth of the matter is, anyone who has faith in me will do the works I do, and greater works besides. Why? Because I go to God, and whatever you ask in my name I will do, so that God may be glorified in me. Anything you ask in my name I will do. I won't leave you orphaned. I will come back to you. A little while now, and the world will see me no more. But you'll see me because I live, and you will live as well. On that day, you'll know that I am in God, and you are in me, and I am in you. Those who obey the commandments are the ones who love me, and those who love me will be loved by God. I too will love them and will reveal myself to them. This much have I said to you while still with you. But the Paraclete, the Holy Spirit, whom God will send in my name, will instruct you in everything, and the Spirit will remind you of all that I told you. Peace I leave you with you, my peace I give to you. But the kind of peace I give you is not like the world's peace. Don't let your hearts be distressed. Don't be fearful. Ancient words for our present day understanding.
Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. I know we're kind of coming back from COVID slowly. So every person here, selfishly, I'm grateful. Let's see, because it's kind of lonely in here when it's just me. So. And also the people online. We've got, our congregation it's much different in a scary and wonderful way. We've got people all over the place. So we're in a series on emotions. And we're not looking at the emotions clinically. This isn't like trying attempts to be psychologists or counselors. I think of it as looking at the emotions metaphysically, which in my understanding means to see what they're doing to our perception. What does each emotion do to our worldview? I have no idea what you've been through this week. I have no idea what you've been through, what traumas that you brought here today. So this is not putting Band-Aids on, significant wounds. This is, if the time is right and you're ready to have this kind of conversation, to think through, we've looked at anger, we've looked at grief, and now to think about fear. We usually think about fear as a problem that we're trying to get rid of. But it really is the will to live within us. It's the impulse within the body to run away from a threat, hopefully to live another day. And in some ways, it's a problem, but in other ways, it's where the vitality comes from to live. When I first started speaking publicly, it was really scary. And I didn't like getting butterflies. Now I just kind of build a little nest for the butterflies beforehand, because that means I'm present, right? If I feel a little bit of nerves, because think about it, there's so many smart people in this congregation. If you spun the bottle, probably any one of y'all could stand here and somehow been able to, pull off a career and get paid for this. But to me, the scariest thing is you got dressed and drove across town, and it would be a really bad thing if I wasted your time this morning. So you should be a little nervous in a situation like this, and that's a good thing. That's where the vitality and the energy comes from. When we don't have that sense of being fully alive, a lot of people seek it out. Why is it that people do parachuting? Recreational parachute, I don't get that. Bungee jumping, cliff climbing, all that kind of stuff. You won't see me there, but I understand that people say they want to feel fully alive. Why do we go, if we hate fear so much, why do we go to horror movies? Have you ever really thought about that? There's something in fear that we need that makes us feel alive. Now, it can be debilitating as well. It can haunt us and tear us apart. It can corrode everything we want to try to do in life. But if we keep the flame at a certain temperature, it's incredibly a wonderful source of power. So, Scripture says that love casts out fear. I want to translate that slightly different and say that love transforms fear. Because you don't want to get rid of fear. You don't want to get rid of any emotion you have. Every emotion you have is a part of what makes you human. But every one of them requires a certain art. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do. Obviously, I'll be groping throughout the series because I don't know what you've been through. So if it's too early or too late for a certain thing, then just speed ahead. Anyway, so one of the ways I thought would be fun to have this conversation is to think about horror movies. Because horror movies and right-wing politicians are experts at triggering fear. Right? And there's a lot of similarities there in the techniques that are there. But one of the ways that horror movies scare us is to have monsters. Another way is to have like suspense. There's a ticking time bomb, or there's a door that's like locked and you know there's something behind it. A sound in the attic or the basement. And then finally, that narrow hallway where you're the sense of being cut off, or the little cottage out in the woods. And the college teenagers are going to go out. Let's go out into the woods. And it's a haunted house. That's okay. That's going anyway. So anyway, I'm hoping that'll make the conversation a little bit more fun. And we have some slides. Could we look at the first one? So the first idea is of monsters. And one of the scariest things is when you take supposedly a friendly image and distort it. It's that ambiguity. So to take a clown, which a lot of us never particularly liked in the first place, but to make that scary. Alfred Hitchcock would do a lot of his horror movies with like the Eiffel Tower or the Golden Gate Bridge or something like that that's a symbol of familiarity, and then chaos happens there. Because what they're trying to stimulate is that idea that reality is breaking down. When we get that sense and think we're going crazy, it can be terrifying. I want to distinguish between what I'm calling this kind of metaphysical terror and then healthy biological fear. Our species would not be here if we didn't have biological fear. But fear can be triggered by all kinds of things that are not a threat to us. One of the best descriptions of the difference between this kind of healthy fear and this metaphysical terror. The philosopher, existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre had an image that really changed my life in a lot of ways, where he has a little bitty book on the emotions, and he talks about the fear that we feel when out of the corner of our eye we see this leering face at a window, that kind of sense of being invaded, something penetrating you. And he said the difference between fear and terror or horror, fear is the reasonable belief that somebody may break the window and come in and hurt you. Metaphysical terror is when you think that smiling face is affecting you through the glass. The more we bring the supernatural into our life, I know this is not a very Presbyterian thing to say. It's not a particularly, religious. You don't, ministers, if you need a new minister after this, I understand. In my life, what I discovered was, as long as my world was filled with metaphysical creatures, with supernatural beings, when I invited the good ones in, the bad ones came in. When I wanted that kind of sense of being important, it was hard to keep the fear part out. I had something happen. I can't remember if it was early on this church or late in when I was an associate in San Antonio. But there's this wonderful woman who'd been so loving and so supportive. She's dying, and she's just been drugged through the mud with her death. She's on all kinds of meds. Her body's completely in turmoil. It's like maybe 3 a.m. There's nobody in the hall. The light's down low. And her face starts to change as she's getting ready to die. And it looks like The Exorcist. A lot like The Exorcist. And her face starts changing. Her eyes do something I've never seen. Both of them do these little circles like that. And I was going, holy jeepers. And then she started kind of growling or doing like a kind of a barking kind of sound, and the foam started coming out of her mouth. And I had to make a decision there. If I believed in demons, I needed to leave. Right? But I decided to stay with this friend that I loved and to focus so much on her humanity that I was not frightened away by what I was projecting on what was happening. So one of the ways I believe that love transforms our fear is that it embraces it. To find the human being behind what seems like a monster. To see the natural event that's happening behind what seems like a monster. In my experience, and believe me, you can disagree with me 100%. A lot of people do. It wouldn't be a healthy community if you couldn't disagree. I believe that nature has no monsters. Period. I believe that nature has no monsters. I think we project monstrosity onto nature. A shark is very dangerous. An alligator is very dangerous. And if one of them comes in the back door, for that moment, it will be a monster. But the more I study that being, whatever it is, I still may have fear and need to preserve my life, but I don't have to fall into the metaphysical horror that makes me feel like reality is melting. Because it's hard to get that back when that starts happening. So when Jesus says, believe in me, I think that's life speaking to us. I don't think Jesus was trying to start a new religion. He wasn't saying, if you follow me, then you get to go to heaven. How do I know that? Because time and time again, he said, I'm not talking about myself. Remember that line in the verse? That's important. He's speaking his life and saying, believe in me. Now, if I said, believe in me, there's nobody here that would think I was saying, believe that I exist. Right? Because I'm standing right in front of you. When Jesus spoke and said these words, he was standing physically right in front of people. When the church makes Christianity about belief, believing in Jesus, I think they're missing the whole point. He's saying trust in life. Right? Just being a Christian doesn't help you through your fears. Trusting in what Jesus is talking about was the depths within your own being. That can be an incredible comfort and an empowerment. When Jesus said, you'll do the same things I do and greater things. See, that's the transmission I'm talking about. Jesus doesn't want you to be a child for all eternity and he and God get to sit in the big chairs. If your source loves you, your source wants you to blossom and display all the intelligence, all the courage. One of the early church founders said, the greatest glory we can give God is to be fully alive. So the first idea that we learn from horror movies is that they're monsters, and the first thing we learn from Jesus is no, they're not. So let's go to the second one. A lot of movies have ticking time bombs in them. And again, it doesn't have to be a physical bomb. It can be a door that's locked, and you know there's something behind it. You know, a shed, they say don't ever go in that shed early in the movie, and you know, okay, there's something really bad in that shed. That sense of dread in my life has been worse than anything that's ever happened to me. It's done more damage to me. It's robbed me more. It's kept me awake at night more than what actually happened. Alfred Hitchcock was sort of master at suspense kind of things. And he'd put bombs or things like that to make you nervous. But he also said the terror is before the bang. Right? If the bomb goes off or the gun goes off or you see the monster, it's like the real suspense is gone. So another important thing that love does to transform our fears is to keep us in the here and now. Because if I run ahead to what might happen, I can torture myself much more than life does. I can think of things, stay up at night, keep rehearsing it. I went scuba diving one time, and I was not really ready to scuba dive. And I started to take off the life jacket thing, but I had my weight belt on. I would have shot like a stone down to the bottom. So that night I dreamt all night long about different ways I could have died. I came back up into the propeller. I saw the groupers kind of like playing with my body on the bottom of the ocean. Anxiety can do that. But usually when the moment gets here, it's not as bad as you thought it was going to be. We worry about death so much, but we're not going to be there when it gets here. Right? As long as you're sitting there afraid, then you're not dead. It's like being afraid of the thunder and the it's like, if you weren't hit by the lightning, don't worry about the thunder. When you hear the thunder, that means you made it. So you really don't need to worry about what you're going to wear to your own funeral. Because you're not going to be there for it. That's somebody else's problem. And there's a relief just going into life and living each current moment as fully and completely as you can. When Jesus says, in my parents' house, there are many mansions, that's very poorly translated most time. This has a better kind of translation, but it was translated into Latin in a word that sounds like mansion in English, but it means holding station. It's more like a motel room. It's more like a camping ground than it is a mansion. We live in an evolving universe. If you don't like shape-shifting, this isn't the ride you want to be on. So part of what it's saying is the life force within you is going to assume many forms. You'll have many chapters, many changes, many transitions, many transformations, but it's okay. And again, that's life speaking. Trust the life within you. So we've talked about this monsters. We've talked about the ticking time bomb. The last thing that I think the movies do that's horrifying is those long hallways. The narrowness, the sense of being crowded. Or again, being in the cabin in the woods. When there's, only the old man with the hatchet, that lives close by. And this is, like, again, that sense of ambiguity, the twins at the end of the hall. Any kind of ambiguity can really terrify us. Another way that love transforms our fears is to broaden what we focus on. Preachers are excellent at telling you that there are monsters in the world. Trump politicians are experts at getting you afraid of every human being, every member of your human family that isn't like them. It's not Christian. It's not even really human to do that. To dehumanize our human family, to make people afraid of people, to say refugees are monsters. Parents that are trying to take care of their transgender kids are predators. LGBTQ people are groomers. Liberals, well, you know what y'all are. Bunch of communists is what you are. Because the last thing Jesus wanted was sharing, right? And think about how preachers and politicians try to give us that tunnel vision that makes us easy to frighten. To just stay within these lines. Just think these thoughts. Just do these deeds. Don't step outside that thing. Don't listen to anything outside of us. And it's easy to be terrified. It's just, oops, they've already moved it. Oh, here we go. So, when Jesus says, I'm not going to leave you orphaned, I'm going to prepare a place for you. Again, that's life speaking. When we tell the story of the universe in human terms, it just doesn't work. When we try to make God an all-powerful, all-knowing human being, it just doesn't work. Right? An all-loving, all-powerful human being wouldn't treat us the way life treats us sometimes. We have to realize that we're something deeper. That the life within us, the energy within us, is who we truly are. That in one sense, we're very ephemeral. We're like lightning bugs. In another sense, we are the entire process of the universe unfolding. We started at least at the Big Bang, maybe before. That your story is cosmic, and that's what a Jesus or a Buddha is trying to share with you. To stop thinking of yourself as this little container that could be broken any moment. Let go of that, and you will let go of the metaphysical terror. I think they're saying. There's a quote that I ran across this week that I'd not seen before, and I really love it. When we love many things, when we love flowers and birds, and we let ourselves be curious about everything, our context for life becomes bigger, and we stop thinking of ourselves as these doomed mammals, and we're the whole circle of life. We're all of it together. This is from Ken Patton. It's a little bit long, but I think you'll be glad that I shared it. If not, take a number, okay? Just kidding. You can hate it. I am at home in the universe. I carry my home with me. No matter where I go, I cannot be less at home. The forests are the rooms of the house of my childhood. The winds are my mother's arms. The sun is my child's laughter. The caterpillar crawling on my hand is my brother's arm thrown over my shoulder. The children playing in the street of another country are my children. The stranger's bed encloses me in the sleep of my covers. The earth is my home and its creatures are my family. There is no loneliness to overtake me. I am not stricken to find my home. I breathe interstellar space. The world is pasture for my mind, forage for my imagination. The universe is at home in my mind. Its creatures live friendly within me. I live warm and friendly with my fellows in the starry world. And that's Ken Paxton. So when I look at this incredible kind of little sermon Jesus is going to give to the followers who are going to have to deal with his execution. And he takes them to the side and he says, let not your heart be troubled. Neither let them be afraid. I think he's trying to do something to their fear. I think it doesn't cast out fear, it transforms it. It transforms our fear of monsters by looking past what we project on other people and other events and seeing there's only our human family. There's only the web of life. There's only nature, and nature produces no monsters. Then that ticking time bomb of our death or of some horrible event that we fear is transformed by being called to the here and now and trusting that the life energy, the cosmic process that brought you here is with you now. And when you die, that's what you'll die into. I don't pretend to know what it is. It's a mystery. But I think we can trust it. And then finally, that sense of narrowness, of being closed in, of being cut off out in the woods, adrift on the ocean with the shark underneath us, is overcome by letting love transform our small lives into a sense of a larger self that includes our whole human family, the entire web of life, and really the whole cosmos. So one poet said, I'm at home in the world. That's a beautiful way to put it. But I think I like best the way Jesus put it. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let them be afraid. I will not leave you orphaned. Peace I live with you. Not peace as the world gives, give I unto you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. Well, this is my wrestling, my struggles with this text. Now we'll take a moment for you to think how you would have preached it.